All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome. I'm super excited to be joining all of you guys. My name is Susan, and I'm calling you guys from the South Carolina Aquarium. I'm so excited that I was able to be able to watch your comments coming in as we started. I see we got people joining us from all over. Just to list a couple that I saw as we were starting off, we've got countries from all over the world that are watching. So from some of us here in the US, but also the UK, Russia, Spain, Canada, Serbia, and then some states in the US too, like Florida, Washington, New York, California, Oregon, Texas, and Maryland. So if there's other places out there that didn't get to say where they're watching from, please add it in the comments. I would love to get to see all of those come in, and you can put your name in there too, where you're watching from, and use that same Q&A right there to ask questions along the way too. I've got my friend and expert, Beth, standing by, ready to answer your questions in the chat. So if you ask questions in the Q&A, she'll be able to type right back to you. And then we're even going to get a chance to do some live questions here too. So I might get to read your questions out loud and answer some of them live with you. But I'm really excited to have you guys all here with me at the South Carolina Aquarium today. I'm in one of my favorite spots. This is the Sea Turtle Recovery Center. So you might even see I've got a tank behind me. This is an area where sea turtles that might need a little bit of help out in the wild might be here recovering. So today we're going to get a chance to take a little tour, meet some of the sea turtle patients that are living here right now while they're recovering, and then I'm going to be able to answer lots of questions from all of you. Now first, I want to get a chance to show you guys a couple of pictures. So let me see if I can share my presentation here. Oh, we should be live full screen. All right. Hopefully that works for you guys. And I want to be able to share with you guys a couple of pictures really quick. So if you can see my screen right now, you're probably looking at a map of the whole world right now, right? And we have people watching from all over, so I want to show you guys where I am. Now, if you look at the United States, I'm going to put a little star where we are. I'm kind of on the edge, the eastern edge of the United States. And if we zoom in, we can take a look at what state we are in. So I'm in South Carolina, right on the coast there. Put another little star for you. And I want to show you our aquarium. So you guys can really just picture where I'm calling you right now. I want to show it off a little bit because it's one of my favorite places in the whole world. I want you guys to be able to enjoy kind of picturing being right here with me at the South Carolina Aquarium. It's an amazing building. We're right on the edge of the harbor. So we're where the water connects to the ocean. There's a river flowing out to the ocean, and we're right there. So we're really close to the ocean. We feel really connected to it, which is awesome. To be able to help the animals that live here in our aquarium and the ones that we're helping out in our hospital. So it's a place where animals like sea turtles might end up needing to come. So we're nice and close and able to help out. So just to show you, to start off, here are 4 different kinds of sea turtles that you might see off the coast of South Carolina. So there's 7 different types of sea turtles in the whole world. And we see 4 of them right here off of our coast in South Carolina. I think that's amazing. They've been around for so long. They've been around for like 150 million years. And so there's only 7 different kinds that are really left, but they're pretty incredible animals. Now the leatherback sea turtles, that's the one that's in the top right corner, those are the largest species in the world. So they're huge. They can get to be maybe almost 8 feet long. They're really, really big, and they're called the leatherback because their shell is kind of flexible, kind of bendy and leathery. And that helps them because they like to dive very deep in the ocean. And when you dive really deep in the ocean, all that water starts to kind of put pressure on you. And the pressure on their shell could crack it if they had a hard shell, but instead they've got a nice flexible shell. So it makes it so that it doesn't crack and it's really safe for them to swim very deep in the ocean. Leatherbacks are very incredible animals. They are huge, but we have had them in the hospital here before. Now, I don't have any of them here today, and we don't have them that often, but we do have some of all 3 other kinds. And I'm hoping to get to show you guys one of each of those other species today. So we're going to meet a loggerhead sea turtle. If you look at the other one on the top there, the loggerhead Sea turtle is our state reptile here in South Carolina. And we really like it here, especially because it comes and lays its eggs on our beaches here during this time of year. So between like May to October is our nesting season. So we'll see loggerhead sea turtles. The females, the girls, will come up and they'll lay eggs. They'll lay like 120 eggs in one nest, and then they go right back out to the ocean. And then a few months later, those little eggs are going to hatch, and the little baby sea turtles are going to make their way to the ocean too. So it's a pretty special time. We definitely love being able to protect these animals out in the wild and have them right here on our beaches here in Charleston. Two other kinds I want you guys to learn about today are the green sea turtle. That one's at the bottom of your screen, and it looks a little bit green even. So it gets its name actually from the food that it eats, which is lots of green stuff like seaweed. And it might even turn the fat of its body a little bit green too. You can kind of see over by its armpit sort of area. It turns a little bit green. I don't know about you guys. I don't usually eat so many vegetables that my skin turns green. Maybe some of you do. I love my veggies. I've never turned green though. Then there's also the Kemp's Ridley sea turtle, which is my personal favorite. It's the smallest and most endangered species of sea turtle in the world. Now, endangered is kind of a big word, but all it really means is that there's not very many of them left. So it's really important that we protect all the different types of sea turtles because all of them are either endangered or threatened. There's not a lot of sea turtles left in the world, so they need our help. And one way we help here at the hospital is by caring for the sea turtles that need help that are injured or maybe sick out in the wild. So I'm going to go back so it's just me on the screen, and I'm going to take you guys for a tour of our sea turtle hospital. Now, if you're ready for a tour of the sea turtle hospital, I want you to do a little sea turtle with your hands with me. So go like this. You put one hand on top of another, and you do its little fins flying. That's how I like to do my little sea turtle symbol. That's actually, if you're scuba diving, how you tell a scuba buddy underwater that you see a turtle. I think that would be really cool to be scuba diving and see a sea turtle. So if you guys are ready, do your turtles, and we're going to take a little tour of our sea turtle hospital. Give me just 1 second here. All right. So you guys should hopefully be able to see a whole bunch of different tanks in the room here. So all of these tanks are part of our sea turtle hospital, and they could each have a sea turtle in them. And in fact, right now they do. Sometimes we don't have a turtle in every single one of our tanks, but we have a lot of turtles in our hospital right now. We actually have 16 patients that we're caring for, and we've been able to release 296 turtles so far. So to start us off, I want to introduce you to this little turtle. This one's name is Harborview. Harborview is doing some sort of funny floating thing right now. I think it just noticed that I'm over here and it wants to come take a look. Now, if you look closely at Harborview's shell, you might notice that it has some white spots on it. It's a little bit hard to see from here, but if you look real close, it has some spots on it, kind of a scrape on its body, because it was hit by a boat. So it has 2 boat strike injuries there. You can kind of see those spots now. This is a green sea turtle, if I didn't mention that yet. But it's a green sea turtle that was hit by a boat, probably accidentally. So sea turtles will come up to the surface to breathe air, just like we do. But they can hold their breath for a lot longer. So probably at some point in its life, when it was out in the ocean, it probably came up for a big breath of air and accidentally got hit by a boat, maybe by like the propeller part. And we don't know what type of boat or anything like that, but we definitely need to be able to care for the sea turtle and try to help it get nice and healthy again. So don't worry, just because he's laying down on the bottom, he might just be relaxing or taking like a little nap right now. I told you he has to come up for air, right? But he can actually hold his breath for a long time. He can hold his breath for when he's full grown. He's not full grown yet, but if he's full grown, he could hold his breath for about 4 hours. Pretty crazy. I cannot hold my breath that long. I can't hold my breath for 4 minutes. That'd be a really long time for a human, but sea turtles are very good at it. And he has been here for a little while now, but it probably still has a ways to go in healing. So we want to make sure that we can take care of our sea turtles until they're completely healed and they're nice and strong and they're ready to go back out into the ocean once they're really strong and healthy again. And then we'll be able to release them back out into the ocean once they're totally ready to survive on their own again. Now I've got one more thing to tell you, actually 2 little things to tell you about him, and then I'm going to have Beth read a question to me. So first off, I want to tell you guys that we do not know how old this sea turtle is. I feel like that's one of the biggest questions we get about the sea turtles, is how old is that turtle we're looking at? And it's so hard to tell. So one of the things that we do is we measure their shell to get kind of an estimate or a good guess at how old it is. And our best guess is really that it's probably somewhere between maybe 5 and 15 years old. That's a wide range, though. We call it a juvenile. So it's not a baby, it's not a teenager, it's just kind of a kid. So if any of you guys are kids out there, maybe you're about the same age as this sea turtle. And we actually don't know if it's a boy or a girl sea turtle either. So it's very hard to tell if a sea turtle is a male or a female, or a boy or a girl, until they get to be a little bit older. Until they're an adult, when they're around 25 to 30 years old. Then we can get a better idea of whether they're a boy or a girl, because the boys will grow a longer tail. So sometimes I call them a he or she, but I have no idea. We have almost all juveniles in here right now, so I'm just taking a guess. All right, let's see if our expert Beth, who's been answering all of your questions, see if she has a live question for me.
Hi, everyone. Hi, Susan. So we had a really great question, and someone is curious to know, what are the things that are in Harborview's tank? So like the pipe and the black things that are kind of hanging out in there. What are those?
Oh, very good question. Yeah, I love that. Sometimes I forget that these are even in here with them. So these are kind of like toys for the sea turtles. While they're here in our care, we want to give them something kind of interesting to do. So as long as they're nice and healthy, we can give them things that might help them to practice their swimming. And since Harborview here is a green sea turtle, we want to give them the appearance of being able to swim through the greens. So they would spend time in the salt marsh around all that seaweed and seagrass that's growing. So we put this different fabric in here. The black fabric there is to kind of feel like seagrass. So you can swim through it and pretend like he's in a salt marsh. Makes him feel a little bit more at home. The fabric is actually made out of car wash strips. So if you've ever been and gotten your car washed and all the fabric kind of spins around your car, it's the same sort of fabric, and that helps us keep it really clean. We're able to wash that material and make sure that his environment stays really clean. He also has this little tube. We actually call those a head tube, because they like to sleep with their heads inside of them. So you might see the other sea turtles that we see today, a lot of them will have those tubes in there. It's a nice dark place for them to take a nap, I think. Awesome, that's a good question. I'm sure you guys have lots of others, and we're going to answer more live. But first, I want to introduce you to another sea turtle. And I probably say things are my favorite too much because I like these sea turtles so much, but I really want to show you guys my favorite sea turtle. Oh, of course, he goes right out of view right now. We'll go see if we can find a better angle of him. But his name is Ed. And Ed is a Kemp's Ridley sea turtle. So I told you that's my favorite kind. This is also my favorite turtle that we have in our care right now. And that's because I was here the day they brought him in, and it was a pretty crazy day. He looked really, really unhealthy when he first came into the hospital. He had been caught on a fisherman's hook, and the fishermen luckily knew what to do. They did not cut the line and let him swim away with the fishing hook still stuck to him. They called for help. And who they called was the Department of Natural Resources. Oh, there we go. There's a better view of him. They called the Department of Natural Resources, which is kind of like our wildlife police. And then they are able to go out and help that animal, and they can also call us here at the hospital. So we can either go pick up the sea turtle that needs our help, or we can go and help on the scene too. But when they got there to check on Ed, this little sea turtle here, they found out that she had fishing line coming out of her mouth, and it was going down her throat all the way through her body. It was actually coming out the other end of her too. So that was probably very uncomfortable, and it made it so that she hadn't eaten in a really long time. So she was unable to really eat anything because she had all of that plastic stuck inside of her body. So when she first came here, she's very weak, very skinny, didn't have very much muscle. She's just in really bad shape. She didn't look very good. But our doctors here took such good care of her. So she's actually had 3 surgeries now, and I have been calling her a she, even though her name is Ed. We did actually find out during surgery that she was a girl. So you can tell internally if a sea turtle is a boy or girl. I kind of love that it's a girl named Ed. And she is now recovering a lot better. So she's been here for a while. She's been here almost a year. but she is able to swim around a lot better. She's eating really well. We just need her to gain some more muscle to get really strong before we can send her back out to the ocean, because we want her to be as successful as possible when she gets back out there. But yeah, she came in August of last year, and so she's coming up on kind of a year here, but definitely doing a lot better. All right, Beth, do we have any live questions about Ed?
Hey, so we don't have one about Ed specifically, but some people are asking, how do we know what's wrong with the turtles? Like, what do we do when they first come in to kind of know what's going on with them?
Ooh, good question. So there's kind of two parts to that question. So when people are out on the beach and they see a sea turtle, the way you would know if one is hurt or needed help is probably if it's not moving around very much. And Ed here is moving around so much I can hardly keep him on the screen. But you would know maybe if you were out on the beach and you saw a sea turtle that was washed up on shore and it wasn't moving, or if it had any visible injuries. We call that stranded. When a sea turtle washes up on the beach somewhere, we call it stranded. So that's a good way that people know if a sea turtle needs help. And then once they come here to the hospital, we do a lot of different things to be able to tell what they need the most. So or what's really wrong with them. So it's kind of like if you have a cat or a dog or a pet you take to the veterinarian, you know, your pet at home can't tell the veterinarian what's wrong if they're not feeling good. So the vet has to do a lot of different tests. They have to check on them. They're going to maybe draw a little bit of blood and test their blood to see if there's any thing wrong with that, so they can tell if they're sick. If they have any illnesses, they can check their body, do a physical exam to look and see if there are any visible injuries. And we also have this really cool machine called a CT scanner. It's kind of like, if you know what an X-ray is, it's kind of like an X-ray, except for it shows not just your skeleton or your bones, it shows the whole inside of the body. So that way we can check what the inside of the turtles look like too. We can tell if there's something wrong with any of their organs, or if maybe they've eaten something that might have made them sick. We can tell a lot of different things using a CT scanner. So that's pretty cool that we have that option. Great question. All right, I do want to show you guys one more sea turtle. So this was the Kemp's Ridley, Ed, and we did see Harborview, the green sea turtle, which means it's time to meet a loggerhead. I'm going to go and see a loggerhead sea turtle here. Oh, kind of hard to tell where he is. There we go. This is our loggerhead sea turtle. His name is Sawyer. And Sawyer actually came in pretty recently. He only got here on May 11th, so he hasn't even been here a month yet. And he was also caught by a fisherman on a hook, so kind of like Ed was. But we realized once he was accidentally caught that there was a lot of other things going on with him too. So sort of like Ed, we thought there was just a hook, and then there ended up being other problems that needed a lot more help. So when he was able to be cared for and brought in here, we realized that he actually had an older injury to his eye. So not the eye we can see on this side. If he comes over closer to the window here, there we go. Not that one there, you can kind of see. So one of his eyes doesn't really work very well. It's kind of, the eyelids are sort of fused together. We don't know if he's blind in that eye or if he can kind of see some. We're still doing some tests. Wow, he can definitely see with one of his eyes. Looks like he's checking us out. He wants to say hello to you guys this morning. You guys might notice he has a lot of stuff going on his shell too. All those bumps, those are called barnacles. Barnacles are actually a type of animal, a really small animal that grows a shell, and it will grow on all kinds of hard surfaces in the ocean. So it can grow on a coral reef or on some rocks, on the bottom of a boat, or even a turtle's shell. Usually a sea turtle is going to only have a lot of barnacles growing on it if it hasn't been moving around very much. So if we see a sea turtle that has a lot of barnacles, that's also kind of an indication or a clue that it might be kind of sick or not doing very well. So that's kind of what we thought when we saw Sawyer too. So he had a lot of barnacles on his shell. Now while he's here in our care, we give him a little freshwater bath when he first comes in, and a lot of the barnacles and stuff will fall off then. And then even as he lives here at the hospital and spends time in this tank in the really clean water, he might end up having some of those barnacles continue to fall off, because barnacles filter feed. So those little animals on his back, those little shelled animals, they eat these tiny little particles of stuff that's in the water. But our water is so clean in the hospital to keep the turtles really healthy that they actually makes it so the barnacles don't really have a lot of food to eat. So they just kind of fall off of Sawyer. So probably by the time he's going back out to the ocean, he'll have a lot less barnacles. When he first came in, he had a big one right on top of his head, and it's kind of gone now too. So he's looking a lot better already, but he's only been here for a month, so his recovery is probably going to take longer than that. I like how yellow the loggerhead sea turtles are. You can tell he's a much different color than the other ones we were looking at before. Beth, do we have other questions about Sawyer or about loggerheads?
We do. So Daniel wants to know why are loggerheads named loggerheads? How do they get their name?
Ooh, another good question. So loggerheads have really big heads. It's part of where they get that name from, and they need those big heads because they've got really strong jaws. And their jaws can actually help them to eat the food that they like to eat. So they need big, strong jaws or mouths that help them to crunch down on foods like maybe even a big fish or crabs. They love to eat crabs. Sometimes as our sea turtles are recovering here, we want to make sure that they're good at hunting on their own. We can even give them live crabs to kind of try to hunt in their tanks. Just fun to see. Great question. See if you guys can get a good look at him. So can you guys see his nose? He's got those little nares, is what we call them, those dots on the front of his head. That is his nose, and he is able to actually smell a little bit. I can't imagine smelling underwater, but sea turtles really can. They can smell underwater, and that's one of the ways that they will do some of their hunting. So they rely most on their sight, but Sawyer here, even with one eye, might still be just fine hunting out in the ocean because he can use that sense of smell. Let's see, we can see him from the top angle. He's got his head tube too. You can see they've got all kinds of stuff in here. All right. Do we have any last questions about Sawyer before I walk back over? I do have another thing I want to show you guys.
Okay, so we have got quite a few questions about can the sea turtle come out of their shell?
Oh, that is a great question, especially looking at him in his shell there. If you guys feel your backbone, so reach behind you and feel your backbone. Your backbone is kind of what gives your body its structure, right? The same thing for sea turtles. Then we live in our bodies have our backbones in them our whole lives, and so do sea turtles. So sea turtles can't leave their shell because they're actually connected to it. Their backbone is fused to the shell. It all grows together. So when they first hatch out of an egg, they have that backbone all connected to their shell, and they have their shell on their body, and their shell will grow with them their whole life, just like our backbone grows with us. So they are not able to leave their shell. You might see in cartoons when turtles leave their shells, but they can't do that in real life. And they also, this type of turtle, a sea turtle, cannot pull their flippers and their head into their shell to hide. Some other types of turtles, maybe on the land or in ponds, like freshwater turtles, they can do that, but sea turtles cannot. They've got such big flippers that they're not able to pull their flippers inside their shell to be able to hide that way. They need those big flippers to be able to swim. So they use them kind of like paddles. If you've ever been on like a kayak or canoe, you might use a big paddle to push yourself along. And sea turtles have their own built-in paddles. All right. I'm going to go ahead and walk back this way. We're going to take just a little quick tour of our sea turtle hospital because I do want to show you guys something else. So I did bring a sea turtle skull that I wanted you to be able to take a look at. So give me 1 second here. All right, so I've got a sea turtle skull from a loggerhead. So we talked about him having that really big head, right? So this is a loggerhead skull. They've got a huge head. It's even maybe a little bit bigger than mine. And then they've got a beak on the front of them too. So that beak, just like a bird has a beak, is part of what helps them to crunch onto those crunchy foods they like. But sometimes sea turtles, even like loggerheads or all species, they might end up eating things that make them sick. And sometimes it's because they have confused the food that they want to eat with maybe some trash in the ocean. And it's not really because they're not very smart. Sometimes it's just because they don't have good problem-solving skills. So like us as humans, when I see trash, I know that's not food, but sea turtles might not know. And part of that is because of the size of their brain. So I want to show you guys. You see this big head here, right? We as humans, our brain fills our whole head. But in a sea turtle, if you look in the back here, this is where their brain goes. And that tiny little spot right there. It's about the size of a grape. or maybe the tip of your thumb. If you look at the tip of your thumb, that's how big a sea turtle's brain is. So not very big. They're definitely good at navigating the ocean, being able to migrate really far north and south, depending on the temperature during that time of year. They're good at so many sea turtle things, but sometimes telling the difference between trash and food is not one of them. So it's kind of up to us to be able to help sea turtles. It's important for us to make sure that we make good choices that help out, keep the oceans really healthy, keep the sea turtles healthy. Maybe doing things like using a reusable water bottle instead of a plastic one. Or when we pack a lunch to go to school or to go somewhere, you might bring a reusable bag instead of a plastic bag. Or if you live near the beach, a really good thing you can do is try to make sure that we're keeping the beach the way we found it when we got there. So because of those little sea turtles that are going to be hatching soon, we want to make sure we don't give them any obstacles. We want them to get safely to the ocean. So if you build a sandcastle, you want to knock a sandcastle back down when you're done. Or if you dig a hole, you want to fill that hole back in. That way all those little baby sea turtles have a chance to make it back out to the ocean nice and safe. All right, guys, I'm really excited to get to all of your live questions. I know Beth has prepared some. We're excited to get to answer them live for you. But I want to see if you guys want to take a picture first. So this whole time you've been able to see me, but I've been looking kind of at my screen and showing the sea turtles, and I would love to see pictures of all of you guys here at the Sea Turtle Hospital with me. So now's a good chance to do a selfie, or maybe have somebody else take the picture if you're with your parents or whatever. Take a picture with the screen. I'm gonna maybe hold up the skull and stuff, so we can all take a picture together. I'd love to get a chance to do a selfie. And then after you've taken the picture, if you've got parent permission, you can post it on social media and tag the Skype classroom and SC Aquarium. We would love to see your pictures. It would make me so happy to see your smiling faces. I promise I'm smiling under my mask. All right, guys, let's go ahead and take a little picture. I'll hold up my sea turtle skull for you and give you a chance to get organized. This will be good. I can smile behind my mask the whole time. I've got my sea turtle skull for you. Or we can do, how about we do our sea turtle hands I showed you? The little sea turtles. I'm gonna wave at you guys for one last picture opportunity. If you didn't get some, I'll make sure that we get a chance to kind of wave and smile and thumbs up along the way too. All right, Beth, do you have any of those questions ready for me?
Hey, Susan. Yeah, so we're getting a lot of questions. A lot of people have the same question about how long do those turtles stay with us?
That's a really good question. So it really depends on what a sea turtle came in for, how long they're going to end up at our hospital. So we kind of say that it could be anywhere between 2 months and 2 years. That's a really wide range. I think the average is close to around 8 months. Some of the sea turtles, if they just came in for a simple hook in their mouth that can be removed and they don't have any other problems, they might get to go out in 2 months or so. But if their shell is cracked from being hit by a boat, their recovery is going to take a lot longer. It's probably just like us as humans too. If you go to the doctor, you go to the hospital, it depends on what you need help with, whether you're going to be there for a little while or for a long time. Good question.
All right, and then Athena would like to know, do we just take care of sea turtles or do we have other turtles in the hospital?
Good question, Athena. So we do have other types of turtles in the hospital. It's almost all sea turtles, but we are able to help a couple of other kinds too. So we do have a gopher tortoise. There's actually a tortoise that lives here in the hospital. And then we also have some other small turtles called diamondback terrapin. And that's a special kind of turtle that lives here in Charleston. It can live in brackish water, so water that's kind of salty and fresh water mixed together. They're a pretty unique type of turtle, and so we want to make sure we can protect them too, because they also need our help. So we have some of those that we care for in the hospital too, but I would say it's mostly sea turtles.
All right, and Noah wants to know, why do each of the sea turtles have to stay in their own tank? Why can't they be together?
Good question, Noah. I know I think about that sometimes. If I was in the hospital, you know, I'd want some family around me. But the sea turtles, actually, they're not like humans. They don't want to spend that much time with other sea turtles. Even when they're born, they hatch out of their shells. They might be around other little turtles trying to make it to the ocean, but once they get out there, they're kind of off on their own. They don't really spend time together. Sometimes they might end up in the same area in the wild if they're all feeding in the same kind of general spot, but they don't really stick with a group. the way humans do. So they prefer to be alone. So that's actually how we keep them here in our hospital too. We try to keep them in their own tanks where they're nice and comfortable by themselves, as long as we have room for it. Now I mentioned we do have a lot of turtles right now, 16 turtles that we're taking care of in the hospital. If we end up having more and we want to be able to take care of them too, we can actually divide the tanks. So we can put, it's kind of like a fence that goes in the middle. So we can divide them because we do have some pretty small turtles right now. So everyone will still have space, but it gives them kind of their own space and they can be nearby each other.
All right, so lots of people want to know, how long can sea turtles live?
Such a good question, right? We maybe have heard all kinds of different answers if we've watched movies where they talk about it. And the real answer is we're not totally sure. It might be one of you guys that ends up discovering the true answer to that question. So maybe you want to be a sea turtle scientist someday, and you want to go out into the ocean and research and find out how long sea turtles can really live to be. Scientists right now have a good guess or an estimate. They think it's around 80 years, but maybe it could be even longer than that. So 80 to 100. Maybe it'll be one of you guys that really discovers the true answer, though.
That would be pretty cool. All right, so Lily wants to know, how do we clean their shells? So we saw all those barnacles on Sawyer. Do we ever take those off, and do we need to clean their shells at all?
Yeah, when they first get here, we do a freshwater bath. So they normally are in salt water in the ocean, but we can give them a freshwater bath, kind of rinse them with all that fresh water, and that helps a lot of things that might be growing or stuck to them kind of rinse off. We could remove the barnacles. We don't usually because they fall off on their own. But if we need to remove them for maybe a surgery or something like that, the veterinarians or the doctors, they can actually do that themselves. So they can take off a barnacle, but usually it's not really bothering the sea turtles. It's just on top of their shell. Having a couple of barnacles can actually help them blend in. I brought a barnacle with me here actually to show you. So this is an old barnacle that's fallen off, so the little live animal isn't there. This is just the shell that's left over. But having some of those can help the sea turtle to blend in. If they've got a couple and then they take a nap down on like a coral reef, they might just look like a rock. But if they have too many, it can start to make them a little bit heavy, make it hard for them to swim. So they're sort of like a good medium point for all of having barnacles on their shells.
All right, Emily wants to know if sea turtles can walk on land at all.
Very good question. So they're going to spend almost their entire life in the ocean. But if they are coming up to lay their eggs, if they are a mom sea turtle, if they're a female and she's going to come lay her eggs, she does have to walk on land. And it's not that graceful. They're not really built for being on land for very long. So they're going to just come up for a little while, usually at night. And a lot of times when it's a full moon, so they can kind of still see pretty well. But they want to come up at night where it's a little bit safer. And they'll come up and they kind of shuffle the sand out of their way. They go up where they know the tide or the water isn't going to wash away their nest. And then they dig a hole with their back flippers, lay their eggs, and go straight back out to the ocean. So they don't spend very much time out or up on land at all.
Awesome. And so kind of speaking of the land, there's a couple of people that want to know, how do we release them? How do the turtles leave the aquarium?
Yeah, it's amazing getting to watch the sea turtles be released. I know I mentioned it already, but we've released 296 sea turtles so far. Which is just an incredible number. I'm personally very excited for us to get to 300. I think that'll be so exciting. But we are able to release them in a couple of different ways, and it depends on what species they are and how old they are. Because we want to put them back where they would naturally be found. We don't want to put them in the wrong area, or they might be kind of confused or not have the food that they normally need to eat. So we want to make sure that we release them where they would normally be. So for a lot of sea turtles during the summer here in South Carolina, that's right off of our beaches. So we're lucky enough to be able to take the sea turtles in our big red sea turtle van and go give them a nice send-off into the ocean right on one of our beaches. It's a pretty magical moment. It's very exciting and really happy to get to watch those sea turtles but go back to the ocean where they're nice and safe.
All right, we have another really good question. Let's see, from Tanush, and this is, do sea turtles sleep? Do they sleep?
Having a mask malfunction.
Yeah.
Yes, they do sleep. They can sleep for about 4 hours if they're holding their breath for a while. But they are not normally going to sleep for that long if they're young. So when they're little, they might hold their breath for closer to like 45 minutes. But yeah, they definitely sleep. They love to take a good nap, especially here in their tanks. They feel nice and safe. There's no predators.
All right, so we've got a class question. We're going to do a shout out to Miss Brewer's class, and they would like to know, what is the main predator of sea turtles?
That is a really good question from your class. So it depends on how old they are. When they're really little, when they're hatchlings that are coming out of their shells and making their way to the ocean, there's a lot of animals that could eat them because they're really small. So their predators could be stuff like birds, raccoons, maybe even a fish once they get into the ocean. But as they get larger and larger and full grown, they don't have to worry about very many predators because they're huge and they've got these hard shells to protect them. I'd say one of the only things they have to worry about as a predator would be maybe a shark.
Very cool. All right, so Victoria, she wants to know, do the sea turtles, once they go back into the ocean after we've taken care of them, do they forget how to hunt, or can they still hunt on their own and survive on their own once they've been released?
That's a great question. You'd probably make a very good sea turtle biologist thinking about that. That's a really important thing to make sure that we do here while we care for our sea turtles. We don't want them to get used to humans feeding them, because then if they go back to the ocean, they might get really confused and start looking for humans instead of hunting for their own food. So we work really hard to make sure that the sea turtles don't get used to humans. We don't spend very much time touching them, only take them out of the tanks if they need an exam. We put their food in and then we walk away. That way they don't associate us with their food or get used to us feeding them. It's really important that we keep them wild. And that goes for all wild animals too. If you think about wild animals that you get to see, maybe even outside of your own home, it's really important that they don't get used to us feeding them. You don't want to feed wild animals like ducks, or sometimes even alligators are things people like to feed. You don't want to feed wild animals because it could make it so that they don't have a very good time finding their own food. It's a good lesson.
All right, so this is a great question. We're going to do two more questions before we wrap up today. So Miss Williams, second graders, they would like to know, what do you need to do to get a job at the aquarium?
Very good question. I think this is the best job in the world, personally. So if you want to work at the aquarium or work at a zoo or work somewhere with animals, one of the best things you can do is kind of what you're doing right now. Learn more. Spend time learning about things. So learn about animals, learn about science, pay attention in school, listen to your teachers, read lots of books. Learning is really important if you want a job working with animals. And the next thing you can do is volunteer and practice working with animals. And if you want to work with sea turtles, you don't necessarily have to work with sea turtles right now. You could even help out in a shelter, or maybe even in a vet office, just working with cats and dogs, or work on a farm. If you work with animals in general, you're going to learn a lot about how to care for them, and then that will help a lot if you want to work in a zoo or an aquarium one day. So I personally went to college and got a degree in zoology, but there's a lot of different science degrees and other degrees that people here have. So you can learn about a lot of different things, but the most important thing is that you just don't stop learning.
Awesome. All right, and then last question that we're going to take or answer live here is that we have some questions about, why did we start this sea turtle hospital? Why do we take care of the sea turtles?
Such a good question. You know, it wasn't really in the plans. We opened our aquarium almost exactly 20 years ago. It's kind of our 20th birthday just passed. So we started about 20 years ago here, and we were just planning on having an aquarium. But within that very first year, we got a call that there was a sea turtle that needed help. And we, as animal lovers and lovers of sea turtles and wildlife, we wanted to be able to help that animal. So we were like, sure, we'll see what we can do. And we got our teams together, and we didn't even have a tank like the ones you guys are looking at today. We actually had to use a baby pool, and we brought in that sea turtle and we cared for it. And they named him Stinky. And he was totally healthy and able to be released back out into the ocean. He was our very first patient. And I think it was such a success that we knew that we needed to keep it going. We needed to keep helping these sea turtles. So we ended up expanding. We made a whole hospital, and then this is actually the upstairs level now. So we've expanded even further, and we want to be able to help as many sea turtles as possible. All right. Thank you guys so much for joining today. You had so many good questions. I was so excited to get to share all of our sea turtle patients with you. I just wanted to be able to say goodbye to you guys, and make sure you tune in to the next Skype in the Classroom live event, which will be a different place, but it'll be awesome, I'm sure. It'll be next Wednesday at the same time. So talk to you guys some other time. Bye.